in, and they will be coming in as they register. We will begin call our town meeting to order. And Town of Charlton, Massachusetts warrant for special town meeting, Wednesday, August 1st, 2018. To either of the constables of the Town of Charlton in the County of Worcester, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify the inhabitants of the Town of Charlton qualified to vote in elections to meet in the Charlton Middle School, Oxford Road, in said Charlton on Wednesday, August 1st, 2018, at 7 o'clock in the evening, for the purpose of taking action on the articles as posted, and you are directed to serve this warrant by posting attested copies thereof, one at each of the post offices, one in Dexter Memorial Hall, and one in Charlton Municipal Offices, George C. McKinstry III Building, in said town, 14 days at least before the time and place of holding meeting. Hereof fail not, and make due returns of the warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of holding meeting, given under our hands this 18th day of July, in the year of our Lord 2018. Signed by Board of Selectmen John McGrath, Chairperson, Karen Stewart, Clerk, Joseph Zafarowitz, Member. A true copy attest Karen LaCroix, Town Clerk, posted as directed by hand by Constable Joshua Evans, July 18, 2018. Please stand with hats removed and join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we take up the business of our meeting tonight, I would like to just review our procedures. In terms of the egress from the hall, we have the 2 doors at the exit and 2 side doors. For discussion, all who wish to address the assembly must do so by going through the moderator. Please come forward to the microphone to be recognized and identify yourself, giving your name and address, before succinctly expressing your views on the motion being debated. Respectfully, all discussion will be limited to the merits of the article, avoiding all personalities and issues that do not pertain directly to the articles in question. We ask that everyone remain seated throughout the meeting and that no side conversations take place so that everyone can hear the proceedings. And I thank you in advance for your cooperation. Article 1, to see if the Town of Charlton will vote to rescind the adoption of Article 27 of the Town of Charlton 2018 Annual Town Meeting warrant, or take any other action thereon. Do I have a motion regarding Article 1?
Madam Moderator.
If you would identify yourself.
Gerard Russell, 63 Old Worcester Road.
Thank you.
I move that the Town of Charlton vote to rescind the adoption of Article 27 of the Town of Charlton 2018 Annual Town Meeting warrant, or take any other action relative thereto.
Is there a second to that motion? We have a motion and second before us. Do you have that motion in writing, sir, that we can share with the town clerk?
I can give it to you.
In terms of your article, in terms of your motion, would you just be willing to strike or take any other action thereon? We need just the specifics of what we need to vote on. So if you could just repeat that motion
I move
without those words.
Yes, Madam Moderator. I move that the Town of Charlton vote to rescind the adoption of Article 27 of the Town of Charlton Annual Town Meeting warrant.
Thank you. And that seconded? Thank you. We have a motion and second before us that the Town of Charlton vote to rescind the adoption of Article 27 of the Town of Charlton 2018 Annual Town Meeting warrant. Do we have a recommendation of the Planning Board, please?
Patricia Vidlac, Planning Board Chair. At its July 18th, 2018 Planning Board meeting, the board held a public hearing on the citizens' petition to rescind Article 27, marijuana establishments, adopted at the 2008 annual town meeting. The board voted 4-0 to not recommend approval of the article. It was a difficult vote, and we all kind of sat there in silence because we do believe that the adopted bylaws have flaws. However, the planning board over the next few months, in time for town meeting, the fall town meeting, will have an amended bylaw to replace the current bylaw.
Thank you for your recommendation. And before I open this to discussion from the floor, I would ask our counsel, special counsel, Catherine Lockman, to share her thoughts regarding any legal issues in relation to this article. Kathy.
Good evening, Madam Moderator, through you. I have been asked to give a brief legal opinion as to the effect of a rescission of the zoning bylaw that was passed at the town meeting in May. This article is a rescission of a zoning bylaw, thus it will require a 2/3 vote of town meeting in order to pass the article. The effect of rescinding this bylaw has some implications for the town with respect to the use of marijuana within the community. Marijuana as a commercial use in Massachusetts is a class of uses that is treated differently than other types of land uses. When marijuana was legalized through ballot question 4, the law that enacted this provided that communities that want to ban marijuana uses, commercial marijuana uses within their communities, would need to do so through a special procedure that involves a specific prohibition bylaw, and in communities that voted yes, such as Charlton, also a ballot vote of the voters. Now, many communities in Massachusetts have zoning bylaws governing other types of land uses that provide specifically, if a land use is not specifically enumerated within the table of use regulations, then that use would be deemed prohibited. However, because of the special law that was enacted with respect to commercial marijuana, that prohibitory provision in the bylaw does not apply. Thus, in communities that have not specifically regulated marijuana as a class of land use in and of itself, the zoning bylaw cannot be interpreted as having de facto prohibited such uses. Thus, a rescission of the zoning bylaw that was enacted at town meeting, which is specifically directed at regulating marijuana as a class of use with respect to time, place, and manner, a rescission of that would result in a reversion in the town to the underlying zoning. Thus, any marijuana use looking to locate in the community would have to be allowed to locate under existing use classifications. Thus, retail establishments could go where retail was allowed, manufacturing where other manufacturing uses are allowed. So, in order to do a prohibition, we will discuss further the next article when that comes before town meeting, but the legal effect of rescinding this bylaw would basically be a reversion back to the underlying zoning and not, in effect, a prohibition of the use.
Thank you for that explanation. Is there anything to be said on the motion before us? Can you speak more directly into the mic, please? Thank you.
Steve Coronas. Steve Coronas, 17.
There's a small button on the side, perhaps.
No?
Why don't you use the mic over there and we'll see if we can get that over here.
Yes, Matt. Oh, boy, that works. Woo!
You've got it now.
I got it now. All right, this thing's on. Madam Moderator, Steve Corona, 17 Old Worcester Road Extension. As far as we were all at the town meeting that night, and I've got a 2-page thing I was going to read, but I don't know if you're going to give me any leeway. It is August 1st. A lot of people have been on vacation. This entire process, in my opinion, has reminded me of when you bring children to an amusement park and they're shooting the ducks. And the more ducks you shoot, the faster the ducks move. And while we've been trying to get the board to slow this down, every opportunity that we have to get the board to slow down and hit the brakes, the ducks are just moving faster. And I think a lot of people are confused. If I'm right, a lot of people are confused over, am I right by that? No, you're not confused?
Well, why don't you make your points as succinctly as you can?
Well, in reference to Article 27, it now reads that we voted on that night. It now reads specifically, and I won't go to my 2-page document, but it reads, it now allows marijuana cultivation in any agricultural zone within the town of Charlton on any plot of land over 10 acres. We didn't have that before. And that was specific when Mr. Silverstone wrote that article, helped write that article. We found that out at a planning board meeting with the interim town planner. They devised that. And that's defeatist to the opposition group because there is some litigation involved in this right now. And an appeal with the old zoning would be in land court. And now that Article 27 stands, and all VGG would have to do is say, well, the town voted on it, it's agriculture now, where that was not there before. And on that night, it was confusing, and it said, and that we were throwing up numbers. All we were debating that night was 101 or 2 plus 2 or 3 plus 3. Nobody, including the planning board, even understood exactly what we were voting on. It wasn't until, again, under secrecy, that it was almost like the next day we find out that we voted on in the fine print allowed in agricultural use on anything over 10 acres within the town of Charlton. That did not stand before. So
Thank you for making that point. I think our legal counsel can speak to that issue and perhaps clarify what the raising in terms of the agricultural land does. If I could ask Kate to speak again, please, on that point. So,
to speak, I understand there's a couple of issues going on here. One has to do with a use that came in before the zoning was passed. And I understand that there has been a lot of community opposition to that. However, that particular land use is not currently subject to the zoning that was passed at town meeting. That particular land use came in and filed a subdivision plan with the planning board prior to town meeting taking action. And the result of filing that subdivision plan was that they effectively put in place a zoning freeze with respect to that land use. So it is governed by the underlying zoning that was in existence because, as I stated earlier, you can't prohibit marijuana by just reading it out of your bylaws because you haven't regulated. So when VGG came in, they basically looked at the underlying zoning, filed a subdivision plan, and froze the zoning such as it was prior to the vote of town meeting. Any vote to rescind that zoning has no impact on that project because it will remain subject to that zoning freeze, provided they get approval of a definitive subdivision plan for 7 years.
correct. I understand the zoning freeze based on their subdivision plan. I've also seen their subdivision plan. It showed they're going to build houses up there. And this falls into the underlying secrecy the town has held from us. If they had followed the State of Massachusetts Cannabis Commission rules, There would have been an open meeting, there would have been other things, there would have things, and the reason the Cannabis Commission put that in, and we've spoken to them, they have those rules that are in there for a reason. And those rules are in there to trigger other steps. If there was a VGG did an open forum meeting ahead of time, which is strictly, Cannabis Commission says you have to do that, it would have triggered. The town would have woken up, it would have triggered potential planning board action, zoning people to say, hey, you know, we're busy, but we have to put this at the top of our plate. Look what's coming into town. The town circumvented that entire rule. And then,
Remember, keep your remarks strictly to the zoning, whether or not we want to rescind.
okay, well, in your opinion then, Catherine, if it's our opinion that the zoning was put in place to prevent further litigation from opposition in land court. Now, in land court, and I'm not a lawyer and I've never gone through that myself, there was a land use argument. Is there a legitimate land use argument with our old zoning, the way that VGG handled that through? Do you think a judge will even hear the case? We believe so, but I'd like to hear your...
I don't believe that is really germane to whether or not we rescind this article.
There was an argument in there, though. There was a little bit of an argument in there, because that was the reason that's the reason that Mr. Silverstone wrote that article the way he did, is to prevent any opposition from coming. He's been doing this. This is what he does, but it's...
Remember, we are avoiding any personalities or anything.
I
think you've made your point, and I'm going to allow other people to speak, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
If that isn't working, you were next, so please.
I have a voice, I can speak without a microphone.
I think everyone prefers the
Standing with my numbers right now. He's the lawyer.
Mike Gormley, Deer Run. My concern about this is, what is the justification even for this to be rescinded? Was there something improper about the town vote? What grounds are there for rescinding this other than the petition of 250 people? You had 1,000+ people here voting back in May. They voted a certain way. Confusion and ignorance is not a basis to have something rescinded or even brought up for a vote. I voted one way. I didn't know all the ramifications of it, but my vote should stand because I raised my hand. Those people who did understand what they were voting on, you are now negating their vote. To everybody up on stage and the people that are behind me, you are negating the town meeting process by allowing this even to come to a vote. There was nothing improper about the vote that was taken. The article was written, it said in the article that it would be allowed in agricultural use on 10 acres plus. If you didn't read it or you didn't understand it, you shouldn't be raising your hand. Because if you allow this to go to vote, you negate everybody's town vote. And if all it takes is 250 votes, signatures on a document to start to rescind things, guess what I'm going to be doing tomorrow? I'm going to be standing outside Ted's getting 250 signatures on solar moratoriums. I'm finishing my point.
No,
I am. I'm going to be allowed to finish my point, ma'am.
Sir?
Madam Moderator.
Sir,
The reason why.
To clarify for you.
Yes, go right ahead.
And then you may
Okay.
sit down.
Well, I can speak more because I'm not done.
When 250 people sign a petition, it isn't rescinding, it was to bring the article forward.
But under what grounds? Just because they didn't like it?
Sir,
You don't have the floor, Kristen.
there is,
But under what grounds?
that is the way our town bylaw.
Then we should change it, because then people are going to be bringing this up, and you're going to have special town meeting after special town meeting because they don't like the way it works.
I think Mr. Cosgrove will,
Just
that point.
to clarify, you've made your point very forcefully, but by statute, the town is required to call a special town meeting if they receive a petition with a certain number of signatures, which they did.
I
So they
understand
have,
that.
they have no choice but to allow it to come to a vote.
I understand that. So what I'm telling you is you're opening up a Pandora's box that's going to allow for this to happen multiple times over on every article that's passed at town meeting.
Thank you, you've made your point. Sir? Mr. Tennyson?
Thank you. My name is Francis Fennessy. I reside at 51 Main Street in Charlton. I've been a practicing attorney for 47 years. I have a very different view of the existing zoning bylaw as it affects marijuana cultivation and manufacturing. We have an IG zone, which is a light manufacturing zone, that permits manufacturers of every stripe to use land in that zone for manufacturing uses. We also have a business enterprise zone that permits biotechnology uses. I suggest to this meeting that the marijuana cultivation first is defined by statute, General Law, Chapter 93C, Section 1, as a manufacturing use. It states marijuana propagation is a manufacturing use. As a manufacturing use, it is an allowed use in a IG zone. It is also an allowed use in the biotechnologies, as a biotechnology use in a business enterprise zone. We have these zones. There is nothing in our zoning bylaw prohibiting marijuana cultivation in these zones. There is a prohibition of marijuana cultivation as an agricultural use. The legislature has adopted a statute that says marijuana cultivation is not an agricultural use, nor is it a horticultural use, nor is it a floricultural use. It is not an agricultural use appropriate for an agricultural zone. The two primary uses for in our agricultural zone are agriculture, surprisingly enough, and residences, single-family residences. So when we say, or when we're told that if the Amendment 27, the warrant of the town meeting, is rescinded, it will go back to the original Charlton zoning bylaw. The Charlton zoning bylaw allows these uses in the appropriate zones, which is IG or business enterprise. Now, why?
Therefore, you're recommending.
No, I just have one more point, and then I'll get to that. What people probably haven't heard is that the developer, VGG, has applied for a manufacturing license. The selectmen have approved their community host agreement that provides for a manufacturing use. Manufacturing is not an allowed use in an agricultural zone. So the point that you all heard is that if we don't do anything, it will end up being chaotic, that the use will be allowed in every zone. That is not the case. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, boy.
He was next, and then you would go, okay?
Excuse me?
He was next. He
Oh,
was in line.
No, ma'am, I was in line, and I stayed over there so that I didn't have to cross over.
I'm recognizing him, and then I will recognize you. I'm sorry if you think that it was out of place. Sir?
Madam Moderator, Gerard Russell, 63 Old Worcester Road. Let us be clear here, after listening to Mr. Fennessy, Article 27 is not good for Charlton. It allows unlimited cultivation of marijuana in agriculturally zoned land in Charlton, and this is bad. And picture this, more than 80% of the town of Charlton is zoned agricultural, which is largely residential. No other town in the area, no other town allows marijuana in residential zones except Charlton. So we've seen this rush by developers to make a profit. Profit is good on the solar power craze. Solar farms popping up everywhere, and acres of trees chopped down, and town officials. I understand. Well, unfortunately, many homeowners had their property values damaged by solar farms, and that's the fear here. Revenue is a good thing for the town, but it just got out of hand. So, to be honest, Article 27 was written for Valley Green Grow. It allows unlimited cultivating. We can check the tapes. They're online. The interim town planner acknowledged in a planning board hearing that the article allows unlimited cultivation. And what is the business model for Valley Green Grow? It's for as many cultivators as possible. So if you live near a tract of land that is 10 acres or more, you too could have a marijuana cultivator and processor and manufacturer in your neighborhood. And I wonder how everybody feels about that. These developers will be cutting down apple trees and whatever else is in their way.
But this article, you're speaking now to that particular project. Could you just focus on your opinion regarding rescinding Article 27?
Yes, Madam Moderator. Critics will tell you if Article 27 is rescinded, pot businesses will rush in, and this is wrong. The licensing process is long, it's arduous, and it's expensive. The Charlton Planning Board will have time to come up with sensible zoning. We know they are committed to do this and are up for the task. If Article 27 is rescinded, Charlton zoning will revert, as Mr. Fennessy said, to zoning that existed prior to passage of Article 27. The previous zoning did not, I repeat, it did not allow cultivation and manufacturing of marijuana in an agricultural residential zone. Furthermore, for those well-intentioned folks in this room suggesting these articles will do nothing to stop Valley Green Grow, they cannot be sure of that. Cannabis Control Commission has clearly said towns are free to enact any law at the local level that will regulate the cannabis industry. It's important to note legislation has recently been filed in the state legislature to prevent what happened here, which was no outreach meeting for citizens until after selectmen voted to approve the project, and equally important, no public discussion or deliberation by selectmen. And this is new information tonight. The State Department of Revenue has informed the town the Charlton Board of Assessors will be asked to determine whether converting an apple orchard that grows apples and sells apple pies is akin to 1 to 3 million square foot cannabis warehouses that grow and manufacture cannabis products with shipping facilities.
Staying with Article 27, why it should be rescinded, please. We're not here to discuss Valley Grove.
We ask vote yes to rescind Article 27. This will give the Planning Board a reason to act quickly to keep residents safe and to keep marijuana in its proper place in an industrial zone. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is Christine Bro. I live at 11 Prenier Road in Charlton. I'm not in a butter for this project that's related to Article 27, but I can tell you that I could hear the cows moo when that property that's affected by Article 27, when they mooed. So that's how close I am. I had quite a bit to say, but I feel, again, that the residents, the citizens are being put in a chokehold on how they can express themselves tonight on both sides. This is more than just Article 27, so I'll do the best I can. I did have some statements to say, but now I've gone through and drastically edited them. Okay?
It would be appreciated if we stay right on target.
I understand, and all of this does actually relate to Article 27.
Would you make your point?
That is one of the points. So I looked on the town meetings for tonight. Today, I looked at that. And for the agenda, it didn't say that there was anything specific that we had to stick to Article 27. Was I looking at the wrong thing?
I will, do you want to speak to that, Attorney Cosgrove?
Thank you.
That's simply because when the warrant is posted, it tells people what may be considered, and that's what they were notified might be considered. So the point is, for example, just way of Valley Green Grow, and I understand, and I'm not unsympathetic to the fact that emotions are running very high, but in that case, you've been informed that because of a subdivision plan that was filed, that's exempt, no matter what you do, other than perhaps a general bylaw, and Katie could address that with a ballot vote. So discussing that particular project, I understand it's irresistible impulse, but it doesn't really go to what the effect of rescinding Article 27 would be.
Well, I disagree, Madam Moderator.
If I may, we have to decide in terms of discussion what meets the, as they call it, the four corners of the article. And therefore, we are restricting our discussion, as we do at every town meeting for every article, to the merits of the article that we are discussing. And the article here is whether or not to rescind Article 27 from our May town meeting. So that's what your arguments, your points, your discussion needs to focus upon. So
when writing about Article 27, I wrote it based on what I saw online, that it was going to be an open meeting tonight. So I spent a few hours.
It's a town meeting, and I will ask you once again to please make the points that you would like. We can discuss your understanding of our procedures at another time. But
I'm trying to make a case so that I can speak freely in a respected way.
Madam Moderator?
Mr. Severowitz?
Just as a point of clarification, I think a more general discussion on marijuana could be done under Article 2, since it's discussing prohibition on a townwide level. So I would say to keep discussions to the bylaw to Article 1, and then Article 2 will be more of a general discussion that people are more free to talk about.
Madam Moderator?
That will be the way it's going to go, and that's why we're focusing on
Agreed.
Article 27, but thank you.
Madam Moderator, I agree, but that wasn't where I was going with marijuana. You made an assumption.
Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one more time. Please make your points, and there are several other people that would like to speak. So make your points, and then we'll go on to the next person.
Okay, I do not like that we have all been put on chokehold relating to Article 27 and the effects of it. So Charlton is a rare community. It's peaceful, it's spacious, it's family-orientated, it's a close-knit community, and we really feel that with the division, just how close we were, because it hurts so much that we're so divided.
And your point on Article 27?
My point on Article 27 is that the way our town is about to be changed permanently unless we rescind. That's my point. My point is that no matter where you go in the town, there's going to be 10 acres available for someone else. And I'm very frustrated. I think that both sides should have the freedom to speak as they need to, but again, we are put on a chokehold.
Thank you. I'll call him.
Does anybody else agree with me? Your voices are being shut down. You're being shut down so that they get what they want, and they set us up.
You are out of order, and I warn you that if you continue, you will be asked to leave.
Madam Moderator?
Mr. Sabarowitz, I'm going to call on the next person.
Yep.
Madam Moderator, Kristen.
All right.
Oop.
Back to our discussion, and again, points on Article 27.
No go. Kristen Costigian, 88 Carroll Hill Road. I'd like to advocate that we rescind Article 27 because it was a marijuana bylaw written for a developer, not for the community. I have two pieces of testimony to offer to support that. I have emails from Alan Gordon, our former town planner, from a year ago when I asked if we would be drafting marijuana bylaws soon and what they would look like, and he specifically stated, and the Board of Selectmen had these emails because they've all been forwarded, that there would be no marijuana business in any residential zone, number one. The second piece of testimony that I have to offer is that I did go to the planning office on May 21st prior to town meeting at about 4:30 in the afternoon. I did speak with Mr. Meskis. I brought with me a copy of the warrant for that night. I pointed at the use table and I said, why did you put SP instead of N in the agricultural zone for cultivation and processing? And he clearly stated, because we knew this project was coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Borowski, 69 Haggerty Road. Oddly, I'm actually going to talk about the practical reality of rescinding Article 27 at this point. The simple fact is that I've never seen a bylaw that's targeted for specific use that is less prohibitive than one that doesn't exist. Think about that for a second. In May, many of us here, and those who were not here tonight, voted to put bylaws in place. What impact did that have? First and foremost, it limited the number of medicinal uses. It limited the number of recreational uses. Is cultivation allowed without limit? Absolutely. That's a flaw with the bylaw. That doesn't mean you rescind the entire thing. It's factually incorrect at the moment to say that rescinding this bylaw allows greater protection and that agricultural use will not be allowed. The simple fact is, look at VGG as an example, that it's going into an agriculturally zoned district. So you can't tell me that the pre-May bylaw was more restrictive. How we got here is irrelevant. Whether you agree or disagree with special town council and or the zoning enforcement officer, it doesn't matter anymore. The only way that that's going to be reconciled is via land court, via an appeal. Until then, the simple fact is that we have a bylaw that specifically addresses marijuana use. And we're here tonight to discuss to say, maybe we don't need one because it's better. I have yet to hear a compelling argument, and honestly, many of the people speaking here tonight I've become friends with on Facebook, but I disagree with them. I may empathize with their plight, but I don't agree with the process. The correct way to do this is fix the bylaw come fall town meeting. And if you want to remove agriculture as a zone, do it then. But to simply say that it's better the way it was, it's a fallacy. We're all going to open ourselves up, perhaps not to the wild, wild west, as zoning enforcement officer Meskis has described, but we are allowing ourselves a greater opportunity for more problems. This is far from perfect. That's why you make amendments to zoning bylaws and subdivision rules every single year, because there are loopholes. They have to be closed. Every single year it gets a little bit better. But to throw this out and to think for anyone in this room that it's suddenly going to be better, I just 100% disagree. I absolutely think that you should vote no, but fix it in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we continue our discussion, our legal counsel is able to clarify some of the issues that have been raised regarding agricultural zones, and so I'm going to ask her to share that information with voters now.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, through you. There has been a lot of confusion statewide about the impact of agricultural zoning and state agricultural exemptions as they apply to marijuana uses. When ballot question 4 was passed and it allowed for commercial cultivation of marijuana, There was concern that marijuana growers would be exempt entirely from all state zoning because there is in existence a state agricultural zoning exemption that applies to all agricultural parcels or parcels on which agriculture is cultivated, or floriculture or horticulture, that are 5 acres or more in size. Now, the legislature made a quick fix of that by amending what is known as the state agricultural exemption to basically exclude marijuana from the definition of agriculture for purposes of that statewide exemption. Now, many communities, including Charlton, have a more permissive agricultural zoning bylaw that is not a recodification of the state agricultural zoning exemption. It's a separate local regulation pertaining to agricultural uses. And in Charlton, the zoning bylaw includes a category in the use table for indoor commercial horticulture, floriculture establishments. Now, the zoning interpretation question that has come up tonight is a question of whether or not a marijuana cultivation use would default to this existing category in your zoning bylaw, which is allowed by right in every zoning district, or whether a marijuana use would be classified more appropriately as a manufacturing use and then, pursuant to the underlying zoning, be required to locate in the manufacturing zoning district. There has been an interpretation from the building inspector at this point in time that the indoor commercial horticulture, floriculture establishment would be the use category that applies to marijuana cultivation. Thus, if the town reverts to its underlying zoning, it would be reverting to this agricultural zoning provision, which is not the state exemption and does not exempt marijuana growing, and that use would be allowed by right in every zoning district. The zoning bylaw that was passed by town meeting puts agricultural cultivation into the agricultural district by special permit. That means it would not be able to locate in that district unless it received a special permit and site plan approval. So there is a more restrictive agricultural zoning under the existing zoning bylaw that was passed by town meeting than would be in place if the town defaulted to its underlying commercial agriculture provisions.
Thank you for that information. And we'll continue with comments.
Hi, my name is Kathy Benjamin, and I'm at 44 Old Worcester Road. Attorney Laufman, if Article 27 is rescinded, will that prevent marijuana from being grown on agricultural land?
I'll see if you wish to respond to that. Is that, all right, the question was about Article 27. Would you care to offer an opinion?
So I believe that that was sort of the substance of the opinion that I just gave. And I would just add that any interpretation under the existing zoning classifications as to which uses would be allowed in which districts is a question for the building inspector. And anyone who disagrees with that interpretation does have a right of appeal to the Zoning Board of Appeals of that interpretation.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure it was clear for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. A further comment, and then we'll call for a vote.
Name is Stephen Pierce, 189 Dresser Hill. I'd like a clarification for 27 and for later 2. If we do actually pass this and it interferes with Valley Green Grow, are we opening ourselves to litigation by a large corporation for violating their zoning freeze and their already established planning?
I certainly can't answer that. You've raised a question, and I don't know if any of our attorneys wish to address that either.
They've already been approved, and they have every right to move forward. But the will of the people could end us up.
Attorney Laufman will provide some information regarding that.
I would just simply state in a large public forum such as this, it may not be appropriate to comment on potential legal exposure of the town with respect to the impacts of these rescissions.
Thank you very much for that clarification.
Thank you.
A couple more comments and then we will vote. Ma'am?
Yes, my name is Margaret Russell, 63 Old Worcester Road. The Cannabis Control Commission states that compliance with zoning must be at the time a company applies for a regulation. So if Article 27 stands, that means Valley Green Grow would be in compliance with the zoning. So I would encourage people to vote yes to rescind Article 27.
Thank you for sharing your opinion. Sir?
Yeah, Will Ritchie, 8 Chelsea Way. I was curious if there's a representative from VGG tonight and how they feel about the vote to rescind. How would they vote if they lived here?
They are not here, and frankly, as non-voters, I'm not
Still get their opinion on it, right?
speak.
If they want to ban marijuana, what do they have to do?
Okay.
Well, that's the next
no
article,
more, no more people interested in discussing this article. I would call for a vote. This is zoning, therefore a 2/3 majority in the affirmative is necessary to pass this motion, which again calls to rescind the adoption of Article 27 of the Town of Charlton 2018 Annual Town Meeting. And we're going to use our voter registration cards for a counted vote. I have counters in each area. All of those in favor of rescinding the adoption of Article 27 of the Town of Charlton 2018 Annual Town Meeting, please signify by raising your voter registration card, and please leave it up so that our counters can make an accurate tally. Thank you. And with my counters, I have Mr. Swenson in the center, Mr. Lottie on this side, and Ms. Lemaire on this side. And we would ask that we not have a lot of discussion during voting. Thank you. And I would ask Ms. Lemay to do the stage as well, the stage in as well. Oh, I don't see that. I don't think you're in.
Which would grandfather existing uses.
86.
There's even a general grandfather existing operation.
90.
90.
90.
Thank you. All those, thank you, you may put your hands down. All those opposed by the same sign, please. And again, leave your hands up.
Can come before or after. It could be, they could do it if it came first.
Please curtail
If they
our
have
conversation. Thank you.
Madam Moderator, 62.
Thank you. The people in these two sections,
She count up here.
48.
thank you.
48. So, but we don't know what that first number was. She needs to know what the first number is. Did she get 48 or 28 for that last one?
48 or 28?
48.
Was that Councilman Mayor 48 or 28?
Like a circus.
That remark was out of order. With a yes vote of 257 and a no vote of 174, the article does not receive the necessary two-thirds majority, so the motion fails. Article 2, citizen prohibition of non-medical marijuana general bylaw. To see if the town will vote to amend the town's general bylaw by adding a new chapter and section that will provide as follows, and further to amend the table of contents to add said chapter and section. Chapter 157, marijuana. Section 157-3, marijuana establishments. Consistent with General Law, Chapter 94G, Section 3A2, all types of non-medical marijuana establishments as defined in General Laws, Chapter 94G, Section 1, including marijuana cultivators, independent testing laboratory, marijuana product manufacturers, marijuana retailers, or any other types of licensed marijuana-related businesses shall be prohibited within the town, or take any action relative thereto. I would ask for a recommendation of the, well, let me get a motion on this first. Is there a motion regarding Article 2?
Madam Moderator, I make a motion.
And could you state that motion?
Sure. I move that the Town of Charlton vote to amend the town's general bylaw by adding a new chapter and section that would provide as follows, and further to amend the table of contents to add said chapter and section.
As printed in the warrant.
As printed in the warrant, thank you.
Is there a second to that?
I would second that motion, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. Okay, we have a second motion and a second before us to essentially adopt Article 2 as printed on the warrant. Is there a recommendation, please, from the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee does not support this article.
I
couldn't stand your motion first. The Finance Committee does not support this article.
Thank you. Is there anything to be said on this article?
If I may?
Before I call on you for discussion, I would again refer to Attorney Lockman for legal opinion regarding the passage of this article.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This article proposes to ban all types of commercial marijuana establishments within the town. However, as I stated previously, with respect to the fact that marijuana as a land use category is basically an opt-out provision under the law, it's a two-step process that would be required for the town to follow in order to actually effectuate a ban. The first step would be to pass a bylaw that bans these uses. And the second step would be to have this be put to a ballot vote of the voters. Now, town meetings certainly can vote on this bylaw tonight, and it's been citizen petitioned to do that. Town meeting cannot, however, put the ballot article before the voters. That is an action that can only be taken by the Board of Selectmen.
Order. Would you continue sharing that information?
There is an open legal question in the Commonwealth right now with respect to whether or not a ban can be properly effectuated through a general bylaw amendment. A prohibition of a type of land use is generally the proper subject of a zoning bylaw, and there is specific case law that talks about the fact that you cannot accomplish through a general bylaw what is really the proper subject of a zoning bylaw. However, no legal challenge has been mounted with respect to that as it applies to marijuana zoning. I will note that the Attorney General has issued approvals of general bylaws that effectuate bans, simply with a caveat that towns should also consider adopting a zoning bylaw in addition to a general bylaw in order to make that ban effective and to withstand any potential legal challenge.
Thank you for that information. And now discussion on the article.
Kristen Costigian, 88 Carroll Hill Road. So Massachusetts, first of all, I'd like to just correct one thing. Attorney Loffman, you said that it would ban all types. It would not ban medical marijuana establishments at all. This is only in regards to recreational establishments, correct?
Just as a point of clarification, you do not need a ballot and a bylaw to ban medical marijuana. Right. The two-step process applies only to the commercial
I just wanted
adult
to point that
use
out.
marijuana.
So we're not banning health-wise, and we're probably not affecting Fourscore either. Just wanted to point that out. Okay, so my statement is that Massachusetts state law, Chapter 94G, Section 3, empowers communities to exercise local control regarding marijuana business, regardless of how they voted in 2016. It is clearly written that communities may govern whether this is a business that they would like to host or not. Charlton, in the previous year, has not allowed the people a vote. In April of 2017, the Board of Selectmen was presented with a citizen's petition with over 190 Charlton citizens' signatures requesting a voice on marijuana business locating in Charlton. That petition was ignored. At the May 2017 town meeting, a non-binding article passed 147 to 44, banning recreational marijuana as a symbolic gesture. That too was ignored. Tonight's article will be binding. It cannot be ignored. Tonight, we will finally hear the wishes of the people of Charlton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen Sage, 41 Lincoln Point Road, Charlton. Clearly, there are individuals in this room who have concerns about these establishments coming into our town. I'd like to hear what those concerns are of why you feel these should not be in our town. Clearly, there's something that is bothering you about that. Before I can vote, I need to understand what the fear is.
Thank you. I believe you were next, Ms. Benjamin.
Attorney Loffman.
You need to identify yourself.
Oh, again? Okay. Kathy Benjamin, 44 Old Worcester Road.
And through the moderator, you have a question?
Yes, I do, for Attorney Loffman. Is this even a proper vote, since we do have marijuana bylaws in our town that have recreational identified in the bylaw?
Can answer that.
So There has just been a vote to leave Article 27 as it was passed on the books, so marijuana is currently regulated by zoning. This would be a general bylaw to prohibit, and so there would be a conflict between a zoning bylaw that regulates and a general bylaw that prohibits. Typically, this may end up needing to have some judicial resolution at some point if the general bylaw were to be challenged. But typically zoning as a more specific land use regulatory classification under the zoning bylaws would control over the general.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And I believe
Go ahead.
Yeah. Stephen Coronas, 17 Old Worcester Road.
I don't know if that's working.
It was working. Well, maybe talk closer. You know, as far as, can you hear this? Yep. As far as this entire ban, if everybody thinks that our opposition group, PCC, are anti-pot people, we're not anti-pot people. A lot of us let me speak. A lot of us right now are anti-selecting people. If the board followed the rules and the law, right? I didn't single anybody out.
So ridiculous.
Right. I do. I can't really say it without, if the Board of Selectmen follows the Cannabis Commission rules, they are structured, and I said this earlier, that it would have triggered the planning board to put in better things. That would have, if they announced things earlier rather than did things behind closed doors the way they did, it would have triggered community outcry. We wouldn't be in this position right now.
But we are here speaking to this bylaw. Did you
Correct.
wish to make a recommendation and a reason?
I strongly recommend that we ban this, we follow this, we agree and vote yes on this ban. Just to the event we're not anti-pot people. We want the town to have the ability to pump the brakes, put in zoning regulation that makes sense. And Catherine, into your answer, the Attorney General has extended, we've been in contact with them. They've extended the deadline from December 31st, 2018 to the end of July 2019 to allow these bans to come in. And Kristen probably has a list of 17 communities around us that the AG has approved their bans. So to say that that's not going to happen, I don't really think there'd be any law. We have until next year to actually do that. And we're not anti-pot. I think the smart, personally, the whole Force 4 project is sensible. Even to me, it's sensible. It's in an industrial zone. It's 20,000 square feet. Why do we have to be the largest one in the country right off the bat when they don't know much about it, VGG doesn't, and the town certainly has no idea what they're going to be bringing into the town? Thank you very much, and I support the voting.
Hello. Shane Burke. Shane Burke, 85 Highland Road, Charlton, Mass. The comments about not being anti-pot were literally discussing whether or not we're going to allow any commercial marijuana in our town because we're unhappy with one particular development. That does not seem rational to me. And the other thing that we have to consider is if we consider ourselves pro-medicinal marijuana, that we're also risking the ability of having medicinal facilities in our area because they may not be strong enough in a smaller area like this to support only the medicinal community. In addition to that, we are expected to pay $200 and go to see a doctor every year just so we're able to walk into a medical facility that's going to charge us the same amount of money as any other place that sells marijuana. And people use things medicinally for marijuana for all little ailments all the time. Just the same way you go to CVS and you grab some Tylenol, it's no different. It is absolutely no different. And people shouldn't be expected to have to go jump through hoops to get their medicine. And that's what you're putting at risk here by eliminating commercial sales of pot to non-medicinal because those medicinal places can't piggyback off those commercial pot sales.
Thank you for sharing your views.
I'm assuming you. Richard McManus, 12 Curtis Hill Road. I want to make a couple of points.
When we talk about banning marijuana use in Charlton, we're talking about the land use. And there are plenty of communities around us that are going to have recreational shops, and I appreciate that there's a large portion of this town that doesn't agree with the use of marijuana. However, marijuana was established by ballot vote in Massachusetts as legal. So if we don't have it in Charlton, it will be somewhere else. And guess who's going to get all of the tax revenue from those purchases?
Do you have a further point?
No, I mean, that is my point, is that if we don't get the tax revenue, it will go to another town, and we need the revenue in this town.
Anyone who is trying to respond to any of these speakers is out of order. If you want to address the assembly, please get in line at the microphone. Sir, you're next.
My name is Mark Warren, Brookfield Road. I was just wondering if we can, I don't know, get a clarification, just some feedback. I mean, everybody from the Board of Selectmen's been sitting up here all night listening to what everybody says, but beyond the attorney who's been speaking about specific law, there hasn't been any real feedback from anybody about how they feel about it, what they've said. There's a lot of information that everybody got when we walked in the door, specifically some sheets that state, some pretty damning information. And I guess, from my point of view, it's easy enough just to say nothing and to ignore what people say and what people state about what you've said in the past and how you've acted. But I'd like to hear from other people, specifically on the board, just some kind of feedback. I mean, I'm not saying, we're looking for an apology or we're looking for an explanation of why you did what you did, but I guess just how you feel about the specific laws, the way they stand, about the decisions that you've made and why you made them.
I will see if there's anyone on the board that wishes to respond.
Madam Moderator?
Mrs. Savarowitz?
First, I love seeing such attendance in these meetings. I wish every meeting had this number of people, especially when we vote on millions of dollars of budgets and many laws.
Speak right into the mic.
Sorry. First off, thank you all for being here. It's good to see a high public attendance rate and involvement. Concerning marijuana, one thing that was...
Okay, keep it to the bylaw.
Yes, according to the bylaw, that we have limited to 2 permits for recreational sales and for growth. I think that was overlooked in a previous discussion. And the people who have come forward with the plans have done work to work with the town to help mitigate many of the impacts, including traffic, including value of homes. They even said that they would do what we did with Millennium Power when the large power plant came in, that they would put a bond up that would help pay the difference of a value in homes of sold now if there was proven to be less value due to the marijuana facility. So we've been working, and we have slowed down significantly to work with the town and protect the town.
Yeah.
Anyone else on the board wish to make a comment? Ms. Spiewak?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
I wanted to come down here to make it clear that I'm speaking as a resident. My name is Karen Spiewak. For those who may not know me, I was elected on May 5th, the newest selectman on the block, I guess. I want to make it very clear, I support this article, and I do so because I believe the people of the community should be afforded the opportunity to vote at ballot. We were denied that opportunity when we asked for it before, and I had attended meetings myself where we basically were told, this was like a year ago, when that there basically wasn't anything we could do. That was not true. And I'd like to put this thing to bed, and again, let's bring it to ballot, let's find out truly what the people of this town want, and then move forward.
If not, I'll move on to the next person.
sorry, excuse me. Yeah, I just, was, thanks for the, the comment that you made and also the explanation that you told me about how companies are working with us, but it still doesn't answer what anybody thinks about this. Everybody who's talked about this, except for, Karen has said that she supports this particular measure, nobody has stated their opinion on this particular thing, why they voted or why they decided to move the way they did. I don't think it's so unreasonable to ask why people thought and acted the way they did on a particular issue. And I haven't heard anything from anybody, any feedback about why they thought. It's not.
We'll give them that opportunity, and then I'll move on to the next person. Anyone else on the board would you speak to that?
All right.
So, when the town took their original vote, that gave the selectmen the direction in which we were going to go.
Mm-hmm.
When you're negotiating contracts, sure. When VG, well, we'll start with Healthwise. When they came forward, we negotiated their host agreement in executive session because we're negotiating a contract, and that's where all contracts are negotiated.
Okay.
And then it came into the public forum. We used the same process with VGG. Now, I made the statement that we flubbed. And where I probably shouldn't have used that term, what we should have done, rather than taking the vote on the host agreement the week after we came out of executive session, we should have told VGG to hold their community meeting. When the citizens made their feelings known, we did not sign any documentation. We held everything up, and we had VGG hold their host agreement meeting or community meeting that they had to do, and then and also had an informational session before that for the citizens. We then came in here. Everybody got their piece of flesh from the Board of Selectmen, and we sat here and we took it. From there, anything that took place at the meetings didn't change the majority of the Board of Selectmen's stance on this. The Board of Selectmen are responsible for executing contracts and that's what we did with VGG. A lot of the comments, in fact, 99.9% of the comments that came forward from the host agreement or from the meeting with VGG were, it does not belong up there. It does not, they're going to develop the footprint too big. They're affecting my home values. They are, we're worried about the runoff. We're worried about contamination. The Board of Selectmen is not responsible for that stuff. Excuse me, the Board of Selectmen is not responsible for that. Right now, VGG is where they are supposed to be for the issues that the people brought up. They are at the Planning Board, they are at the Conservation Commission, they're dealing with the Marijuana Advisory Board, which also includes the police chief and the fire chief. That is not our responsibility, and that's why the board took the votes that we do. We are accused all the time of sticking our nose in business and of other boards and other commissions where it doesn't belong. And that's why this board, and I'm speaking for myself, that's why I voted for it, and I believe that's why my fellow board members voted for it. We have nothing to do with planning or site development or water runoff or what the smell is going to be that comes from VGG, and we have nothing to do with the public safety aspect of it compared to the Cannabis Control Commissions, you know, what they have. So that is why I voted the way I did. And I've made, and to that point, anybody that I have talked to, I have made that point to them. So, and just a little bit further, the reason I'm not speaking about this is because I want the people to have the vote the way they want to have it. I don't want to stick myself in the middle of it, because there's a lot of people, if I say I'm for it or I'm against it, they're going to vote exactly the opposite. So, all right.
No, that's fine. And
Through the moderator, did you have a further statement?
well, I just, again, wanted to comment on his statement about the fact that it's the reason. In other words, you've told me that the board does this, the board is doing this strictly on a contract basis, that it doesn't look at all the other reasons and rationale for all the other departments and why something is or isn't appropriate for the particular venue, position, place, or whatever. It doesn't tell me. You said you voted for it, but you didn't say why.
I think I did.
I mean, I guess I'm not hearing it.
Concise. I think I was.
All right, anyone else on the board? If not, I'll go to the next.
That's fine.
One more comment, Mr. Scarlett.
Thank you. To clarify, based on the benefits to the town and the versus the impact, that's why I am voting for. That's why I voted for it, and that's why I will vote against Article 2. If it passes, as a selectman, I would not bar that from a general vote, because I believe everyone has the right to vote. So that's just one person's opinion.
Thank you.
I think you were next. Comment?
Yep, Mike Gormley, 20 Deer Run. Mrs. Moderator, Madam Moderator, I have a couple questions.
In the mic.
I have a couple questions to clarify exactly what we're voting on. We have a town zoning bylaw that we voted on that limits it to 2, correct?
Yes. What you're voting on is a general bylaw.
I understand that. I understand that. So, but we have something in place already that limits it to 2. My question, I don't know if it's for Board of Selectmen, Planning Board. Sorry, the microphone's not working very well.
There you go.
All right, here we go. I'll swallow it for you. We've got, since we're voting on, we have something in place now that limits it to 2. My question is there any establishment in town that has already started the process to have a recreational facility or dispensary in place that would be grandfathered in because they applied prior to this general law that we're voting on right now?
Yes. Yes.
Anyone in town can?
Oh, just the.
And I have a follow-up to that afterwards.
Yes, that would be the Healthwise facility that's being put in on Route 20.
So they've applied for recreational, not just
Moderator.
Madam Moderator, sorry. So they've applied for recreational, not just medical. Is that correct?
That would be correct, yes.
Okay. So we're really now talking about, there's already going to be somebody in town, so we're talking about restricting it to one other business that would not be able to establish in town. Question for legal counsel. I assume this is for legal counsel. What we vote on tonight, from what I understand what you talked about earlier, cannot go into effect until a ballot is taken and is passed at town ballot. Question I have is, when would the prohibition start? Could somebody apply tomorrow for a recreational permit, and then we go to ballot in October, it passes there, but yet they're grandfathered in?
You want me to take that? Okay.
Attempt to respond to those questions.
Yes. So in another layer of legal complication here, a general bylaw does not generally have grandfathering associated with it as a zoning bylaw does. So a use, under zoning, if a use receives a building permit or a special permit prior to the advertisement of the notice, planning board notice of the public hearing, they are not subject to any zoning change that's voted by town meeting. Here, this is being proposed as a general bylaw amendment, so it would not have the same grandfathering rights necessarily that attach if this were voted as a zoning bylaw.
Madam Moderator, if I could just get one more, just to clarify the same question. So what you're saying, though, is if it's voted on here, it would go into effect now. It does not have to, it would need to be voted on in order for it to go into effect, but the date of the effect is as of tonight.
A general bylaw does not actually go into effect until it receives approval from the Attorney General.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I believe you were next, sir.
Madam Moderator, Gerard Russell, 63 Old Worcester Road. I would like to, Madam Moderator, address a point that Selectman Zafarowicz just made regarding a mitigation for property depreciation. The fact is, there is no document that I know of, and I'm an abutter. No certified letters have gone out to any abutters about any property mitigation whatsoever. There has been discussion. However, there is no document, there is no promise, there is no escrow account, there is no bond, period.
Thank you for your
This was related to what Selectman Zafarowicz said.
Sir, I believe you were next.
Yes, hi, Madam Moderator. I'm Jim Chenard, and I live on 105 Burlingame Road.
You have to handle that mic. Thank you.
Hi, Madam Moderator. I'm Jim Chenard. I live on 105 Burlingame Road, and my question is to the Board of Selectmen here. I am for this passing, and kind of piggyback Karen there. I would like to see it go to a town vote, because yes, everybody here had a chance to vote, but the rest of the town people didn't. I mean, some people work second shift, like myself. I happen to have the day off, and that's the only reason why I'm here today. Otherwise, I'd be at work and I wouldn't have my opportunity to vote and voice my opinion. So therefore, I would like to see it go to a town vote. That way, everybody has a chance to put their vote in, and we can take it from there and see where it goes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Moderator. My name is Rosanna Sampson. I'm at 45 High Crest Road. And one issue I haven't heard anyone address is the massive amounts of water that these companies are going to use to grow and cultivate the marijuana. From what I understand, there wasn't enough water to put the fire out at Charlton Orchards a few years ago. So, and from what I understand, other companies in other areas have drained the wells of the surrounding houses. So the vague promises by the selectmen and the company to mitigate damages, what will we do when our water has run dry? Thank you.
Are you making a recommendation on the bylaw?
I think we should vote for it, yes.
One additional point, sir?
Yes, one additional point. As far as the...
Identify yourself one more time.
No, okay. Steve Corona, 17 Old Worcester Road. And with the Finance Committee in front of us and Robin Crabright, I have one question, because I watched... Can you hear that? I've watched some of the recent televised meetings from the Finance Committee, and as far as the new safety building, fire safety building, police station, combined building, Robin had made points that the town is in financially great shape. We're going to have lower debt by the time that comes around. The town we're going to be able to do that without turning it into a pot town. I just want to make that point. Am I correct in saying that? That the town is financially sound enough to go ahead with the future plans that we have?
So you're asking?
I'm asking a question because I've heard, just...
So Madam Moderator, at the town meeting, we had done a presentation with how debt is coming off.
Yep.
And that we were trying to keep the debt going and be steady.
Yep.
So we felt like we were going to be able to take care of that.
Yep.
But, I mean, to say that we're strong, I think the 2.5, when the school was doing the 2.5, they certainly said that this is going to work for us for 3 years and we'll be back. they're still going to need additional funds. So I don't know that I would say that we're strong.
But we're
I would
not in-
say we're trying to keep our borrowing at a level rate.
That's very thoughtful. That's a conservative community. We ought to be thinking that way. 3 years, if we run into financial trouble in 3 years, maybe we'll have zoning in place by then that we can actually do this smart. We're not against pot. We're just against
So your
where it's going. Thank you.
recommendation on the bylaws is
Is to vote yes for the ban. Thank you.
Coming back at the next meeting.
pick up the microphone.
Thank you. My name is Noreen Smith. I'm at 136 Dresser Hill Road.
On the
Sorry, my name is Noreen Smith. I'm at 136 Dresser Hill Road in Charlton. I'm not in a butter, and I am commenting in favor of putting in place a ban for now so that the town can catch up with the rapid pace of changes and the rush in of businesses that have not adequately presented a fair assessment of the benefit versus the impact to the town, and the town has not had time to consider what the impact is. We have many independent studies that have been done in other states that have been through this already, including Colorado. It has longstanding marijuana businesses. And the look at crime and property values has not been taken into consideration in light of what might be the other tax benefits to the town of having an additional business. What will be the impact of the decline in the property values in the surrounding areas, the proximity to our schools and residences, the siting, the zoning that needs to be put in place. We are a loophole. This community is a loophole, and it feels like we're being taken advantage of over a matter of timing. The timing is part of the problem in all of these conversations and the confusion that has resulted. And to slow it down is not a bad thing. It doesn't mean it's stopping everything forever, but it's giving the town time to do its business and to do it properly and to allow for the town citizens to participate and to comment on what is an important decision for this community. I think the fact that we don't have a town planner is a significant problem for this community. This is a consideration that requires a plan, and we clearly don't have a good one. So on those grounds, I recommend that we stop the process.
Thank you very much for raising those points. And I think we have one final speaker.
Good evening, Madam Moderator. My name is Susan Krupnick. I live on 119 Richardson Corner Road. I'm not in a butter, but as a very concerned healthcare provider, I will speak to issues of safety in healthcare. And I'm sorry you all haven't taken that into effect or considered it, but somebody should be doing that. People speak about Colorado, Arizona, so where I spent a good part of my day doing research today were my friends from University of Colorado in Denver, University of Arizona, and the DEA, and the National Fire Protection Association. A couple things that I don't know if you've considered or anybody's considered, National Grid or whoever we would get our power from or they would get their power from. In the cultivation process, they use an incredible amount of power. Those lights are on all day long. They're high-intensity lights. Salem, Oregon, and Portland, Oregon have, since they started cultivation there, blown their grid 400 times since 2015. I don't know that Charlton can sustain that, or what, as a Charltonian, I'd want to sustain that. The other thing is, everybody talks about the money. Yeah, there's money out there to be made. However, some of it has to go back into, and if you're talking about budget, some of it needs to go back into law enforcement. Burglary rates are up in Denver, Colorado, and that has happened since the legalization and the different companies getting their licenses. The other thing that's happened is increase in car crashes and fatal car crashes. We already have enough little white signs on Route 20 as far as I'm concerned. The other thing that has occurred is an increase in the amount of ER visits, pediatric ER visits, because people weren't careful with their marijuana and children got into it. I don't want to see that happen here. I don't think Southbridge wants all that coming into their ERs. The other thing that's happened is an uptake in veterinary science visits because dogs and cats are getting into the marijuana. So there are downstream healthcare consequences. The other thing that has occurred, and it just happened, I'd like to...
Will you please be polite and allow the speaker to finish her point? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just talking about facts, not emotion. Another fact is just in Snowflake, Arizona, at one of their larger cultivation centers, they had, nobody caused this, it was a purely accidental spill, but it sent 16 of their workers to the hospital. Nobody had long-term problems. But then they started digging down into that facility and saw that they didn't have adequate training. So those are the other things that I think are downstream. And that's company driven, but that could make, if they're going to employ Charltonian people, that makes our citizens potentially sick. And I'm just talking healthcare and public safety, and you all better be attentive to that, or I personally will be coming to talk to you, because I don't want to see my fellow neighbors or any of you be harmed by potentially these facilities. We've already seen one death on Mass Pike by somebody under medical marijuana, and I don't think we need another state trooper or a police officer killed because somebody's under the influence, and maybe we can't protect them. Thank you.
You were next.
I'd like to move the question, please.
Yes. I think we have just one more brief comment.
2 minutes. 1 minute, 30 seconds.
And then we will, rather than take...
So very quickly, my concerns are threefold. Number one, it's concerning people that are not in the audience, and that is kids. I do think, I'm an educator by trade, I do think putting the biggest marijuana plant in Charlton is going to have an effect on kids. There are 3 schools in the area, and I'm also a parent. In addition, the other word that I heard tonight, and I heard it from legal counsel, I heard it from the crowd, is confusion. The process has been far from clear, and I think that people are confused, so I do think that you should slow down the process. Lastly, is people are talking about the benefits and the revenue. I question that. I think there is a lot of unknown. I think it is fairly not legal, and I really question the financial benefit to the town. And if there is a financial benefit to the town, I want to make sure that it goes to the school, the police, and fire, and I have yet to see a plan laid out. Thank you.
So your recommendation is supporting this article?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience, and we'll bring this to a vote.
Tie up the loose end or not?
Pardon?
Do you want me to tie up the loose end with respect to the zoning versus general and the moratorium?
If they pass this, come back, we're going to make it.
One final legal
Why am I going to go
before
through
we
the whole
vote.
planning board procedures?
All right, Attorney Martin.
Just in response to the comments heard this evening, just one point of legal clarification. If a general bylaw is voted this evening to ban, there's nothing that would prevent either the planning board or a citizen petition from bringing this also as a zoning bylaw ban to clear up any confusion between the conflict between a general bylaw ban and a zoning bylaw ban at a subsequent town meeting. There was also some reference made this evening to moratoriums, which basically are zoning freezes that are put in place by a number of communities. Charlton did not ever enact a zoning moratorium. Some communities have done that, but the process for doing that, again, is an amendment of the zoning bylaw. So while the Attorney General is allowing some communities some additional time to consider these zoning issues, it's pursuant to an enacted zoning amendment imposing a specific moratorium, and the AG is approving those to a certain date and approving some extensions beyond the end of this year. But just to clarify that those moratoriums is not something that is currently before this meeting, and it's not something that's currently in place in Charlton.
However, passage of this article as stated would provide a general bylaw, which then, in order to be enacted, would require a ballot vote, which can only be proposed by the Board of Selectmen, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. For passage of the article as printed, which would prohibit, amend the town's general bylaws to add a new chapter and section that would prohibit marijuana, non-medical marijuana establishments. A vote in the affirmative is necessary for passage, and because this is a general bylaw, a majority vote is, a simple majority vote is necessary for passage rather than 2/3. Again, we will do a counted vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your voter registration card, and please keep it up until our counters have gone past all of the rows.
Unelegantly, but nothing to prevent.
And we would ask that we not hold discussion during the count. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
99.
All opposed by the same sign, please. And again, I would ask that we hold our side conversations. Thank you.
Based on these two votes, 431. 45.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I thought, 2 to 1.
59.
By a vote of 282 in the affirmative and 154 in the negative, Article 2 passes.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Hey, Carrie,